We have tonight with us Andrew Phillips, who is the founder of a startup, actually the founder and director of Flan Solution. It's a startup based in Lausanne that provides digital marketing solutions for business. And one of the products is the passbook that some of you may have on the iPhone. Actually, who has a passbook on the iPhone now? Yeah, exactly. I knew there would be a couple of us. So this is a company that developed that. And I asked Andrew, so, what are you going to talk about? And he told me, actually, it's quite easy to have ideas. It's pretty easy to find investors. But what is most important is to provide solutions that meet the needs of the customers, to develop innovation that is marketable. So leading innovation in a startup, this is what Andrew will talk about, and please applause.
I'm Andrew Phillips, and as said, it's great to be here as representing the small end of the innovation company spectrum. It's good to have this opportunity to come back to Zurich, talk tonight, where I used to live in Zurich for quite a few years before moving down to Lausanne. Last year, as said, I launched a startup company focused on innovation for marketing promotions, and clearly the success of my company totally depends on having the right approach to innovation. So tonight I'd like to talk a bit about how I think you can get really innovative ideas, how to focus on the right type of ideas for when you're in a startup situation, certain things that can help, and things to watch out for, so on. Anyway, I try to apply these right innovative approaches to everything, actually, even looking for ways to do this at home. For example, I recently observed my partner, Sophie, preparing for breakfast. She was bringing many different items to the table to make a nice breakfast spread, and I noticed that each time she went to the refrigerator or the cupboard, she was coming back with one item at a time. And so after watching this, I suggested that there perhaps could be a more efficient way to manage this, and I was right. Sophie used to do this in 10 minutes, and now it gets done in 7 minutes by me. Anyway, yes. So I founded my company Flan Solutions in September 2012. It's a bit of a strange name, perhaps, but I needed solutions.com that wasn't already taken, and there's already 20,000 million companies that have this name. So there's a small river in Lausanne that nobody knows about because it's actually buried under the ground, but called the Flan. So I picked that one out, and funnily enough, I had a .com address that I could name my company. So anyway, we provide business solutions to launch, what does it say here? Innovative marketing promotions using Apple's Passbook digital wallet, which I hope you've all heard of. It's something that I think is really great for both customers and business, especially for customers. It allows you to put everything in one place on your iPhone instead of having a wallet full of plastic. It's designed to replace loyalty cards and coupons and boarding passes and gift certificates and all these sort of things in one standard place. You don't need to, and that will remind you that you have them. So if you go to a store and you always forget you have a loyalty card or a coupon or something for it, as soon as you get near it, the GPS on your phone will remind you you have this thing you can use. Or maybe you have a gift certificate that you've got for 100 francs and you've spent 32 francs and you now have 68, or maybe I spent 15 last week and I don't remember, and then When it's an electronic one, it can tell you exactly how much you have all the time. Or how many frequent flyer points you actually have right now, or what is your membership status, are you silver or gold or whatever. It's also very good, I think, for business, especially because it's already on every iPhone. It's not an app that people need to find and download and remember to use amongst the 100 others that they've forgotten about already on their phone. You can't even delete it off your phone. So it's very easy and cost effective if you want to make a promotion to all your customers via email or Facebook or other social media, or even offline posters that you scan something. I think it's a bit of a game changer for advertising in general. If the point of advertising, especially for offline ads, is that you have to trigger such an emotional response in people that they're going to remember something, to do something later on. So you have to saturate them with ads or jingles or whatever so that they'll know we have to do something later on. But if you can instead give them something immediately into their phone that'll even remind them later on to use it, I think that's pretty cool, and hopefully trying to convince businesses of the same thing. Another thing that's cool, I think, is that you can measure every part of your promotion. How many customers responded to a particular ad, how many then used an offer, where did they use it, what did they buy with it, which staff member interacted. You get a full CRM system for free. Anyway, before launching my startup, I worked for 11 years in France Telecom Orange, in Zurich, Lausanne and Paris and other places around Europe, mainly on projects especially related to data management and performance analysis. And I'm trying to apply these experiences that I got from that, where I see with the strength of a system like Passbook that it can give really good analytics to businesses. So our company has everything for Passbook, from how to create and distribute your promotions to back-end servers and apps for staff and so on. Anyway, that's enough about me. The elevator pitch, that was rather a long elevator. If you want to hear anything more about it, of course, I can talk all night later. So how to get innovative ideas for a startup. I think there's a lot of, it's not too difficult to come up with ideas. I usually have about 3 in the shower each morning, and when you're a startup, you have to spend a lot more time trying to focus. You don't struggle to have ideas, you struggle to pick the right ones to do. But you really need to focus on finding something that is a strong unmet need for customers in the community, that something they really want. Maybe they're already getting it in one way, but it's not exactly, it could be done a lot better. There are always disruptive new technologies that are coming along that can be applied to old ideas or so on, to do things in a much different way, or new business models. And putting these things together is a good way to come up with great new ways to do it. For example, one interesting unmet need for a lot of people is hearing or reading about gossip. It's quite seductive for most people, or many people, and there's especially a massive boom in like celebrity gossip, especially in the 80s and 90s, around royals and celebrities and so on, to showcase their supposedly exciting lives to everyone. And there was no end of magazines that I read religiously every week, of course, like Hello and so on. But anyway, then along comes Facebook with a much better product. Instead of manufactured gossip about celebrities that you think you know, every day you can read real, actual gossip and embarrassing photos about the people that you really need, and that I think you really know. And you can also, of course, passively stalk your ex and try to find out what your kids are actually doing and so on. So it meets many different needs, but I think this is one of the real strengths of Facebook, where it's taken something that was existing and brought in that's still a strong, powerful incentive for people to do it, and applied things in a different way. So as I said, finding great innovative ideas I think is not so hard. Finding people that will tell you your ideas are great when you're trying to launch a startup is also not very hard. In fact, you'll get lots of people who say, wow, that's a really great idea, and then you can go online and get lots and lots of great comments and users and so on if your thing is free. And if you're lucky, you can even usually find people that are willing to invest in building your ideas. It's not that difficult to get VC funding or get your rich uncle to give you some money or something that will allow you to launch a startup at least and work on it for some months. If you're really lucky, you can do things like, for example, Instagram. Last year was sold to Facebook for $1 billion. They had a really popular and successful product. They had quite a number of investors, and they had zero revenue. They didn't even have any plans to make revenue, not from users, not from advertisers, not from anyone, and they still managed to sell their company for $1 billion. So they were lucky and rare. Or maybe their business model was to sell to Facebook, and then they did a very, they met exactly what the customer wanted. So, as I said, ideas are not so difficult, and encouragement of those ideas is not so difficult, but what I found in the startup environment is that finding people who'll pay for your ideas is much, much harder than you probably think. You may have the best idea you think for a startup, and then what do you think of this? That's the coolest. Well, yeah, great. Would you pay for it? Maybe not. So you really need to focus most of your energy on meeting as many potential customers as possible, really finding out what is currently making their life hard or what would delight them, and then actually shifting your what you're focusing your innovative talents on and your business plan in the direction that's actually going to have customers pay for it. Otherwise, you don't have a startup, you have an expensive hobby. So, yeah, the success of any startup depends really on three core factors. There's the team. Do you have the right CEO or senior staff or developers and engineers that are working on your innovation? Your product, how cool is the product? Does it have fantastic features? Is it easy to use? Is it the fastest one? Is it very reliable? Or in the market, the number of customers you have and the growth rate of bringing in new customers. And the most important of these is market. You can have a great team and a fantastic product, but if it doesn't fit that market, you will fail. You might think that a product can not really be all that great if you haven't got the right market for it, but that's not the case. It's Nokia, for example, has some fantastic phones available right now. They've got great features. The design looks pretty cool. It's top-notch build quality, full of technological innovations. They're probably the best Windows phones, but nobody is buying Windows phones. So that's the only thing that really matters is what they call product market fit. i.e. being in a good market with a product that actually satisfies that market. So some things that I think can help. You don't need to have completely new ideas at all. Before coming here, I did a search for pizza restaurants in Zurich on local.ch. There's 119 entries. So why would you want to open number 120? Because clearly there's plenty of demand for pizza in Zurich. No one yet has come up with the best combination of selection options, ingredients, cooking techniques, ease of purchase, delivery service and pricing schemes and so on. No one has captured the market completely yet, but it's well defined and there's lots of revenues to be gained if you do it right. So you don't need to come up with something completely novel. If there's already a market there with competition, that means there's money around. In fact, Pizza Hut and Domino's did manage to come up with good pizza product fit for the dine-in and delivery markets and became global companies with lots of revenue in the process. Existing markets show that no one has the perfect solution yet. So, and even if you think you have the coolest new idea, it's probably not completely new. And there probably are several startups that may have already failed to do what you're trying to do, and you should try to learn as much as possible from any mistakes you can see out there. Using new technologies to improve on existing well-established products and solutions is a good approach. For example, photography in general is a product that customers have always wanted, the ability to capture a moment and look at it later and share it with their friends. And new disruptive technologies have completely reworked the photography market for hundreds of years. Photography initially existed since ancient times as pinhole cameras putting images usually upside down on a wall. In the 1830s, a French guy called Louis Daguerre invented the first commercially successful photographic process called the daguerreotype, I think. Which created images onto a silvered copper plate. It used to take hours to take a photograph, so it was only practical to do landscapes or still life images at first. But by the 1850s, improvements in lenses and photosensitive materials had completely transformed that, and suddenly there were millions of these photographs being produced all over the world, and photography studios were popping up everywhere. And suddenly, for the first time in history, people could, instead of royals having to get a painting done of them, normal people could obtain an exact likeness of themselves or their family for a modest cost. But even though this daguerreotype process took over the whole world, it was rapidly superseded in 1860 by some new processes and completely faded away within 2 years. This sort of things happened over and over again when new disruptive technologies came through. George Eastman invented the film camera in the late 1880s. In 1900, came out with the box brownie camera, which was simply made of cardboard and a very cheap lens, and sold for $1. And everyone could suddenly buy a camera, and they made lots of money on the film processing side of it. The Lumiere brothers were famous for holding the first public screening of projected motion pictures in 1895, and not only was this a great technical innovation, but they also had the smart business sense to charge admission. And by 1918, Charlie Chaplin was the most famous man in the world. So then for a long time, the photography market was dominated by large corporations, Kodak, Fuji and Agfa for the film, and Nikon, Canon, Pentax, Leica, etc. for cameras. For most people, it was still difficult to take and process good photos. This was mainly handled by professionals, but it's still an unmet need for a lot of people to be able to get good photos easily. Every now and then a new technology would come along, like Polaroid pictures that allowed you to instantly see your photos, but the quality wasn't that great, so it didn't revolutionise things. What was a revolution in 1989, Photoshop was introduced. This brought a fantastic innovation, the ability to manipulate images after they'd been taken. This led to a decline in supermodels. If you think about it, at the beginning of the 90s, there was many household names, Linda Evangelista, Claudia Schiffer, Cindy Crawford. Now there's not so many famous ones because it's now much cheaper to use Photoshop to turn anyone into a supermodel. I played a small part in the most tumultuous part of photography innovation journey. In 1998, I left Perth in Australia and moved to Zurich to the Techno Park to work with a small, exciting company called Supercomputing Systems. They're still there. We had a big contract with Agfa, which at the time was the German photographic giant. Most of you here will be too young to remember, but back then you needed to take your camera film to a 1-hour photo lab. And usually there was a big machine at the back that performed all the processing called the Agfa Mini Lab. They had most of the market around the world. And they wanted us to develop an innovative new product, the Agfa Digital Mini Lab. This system would take the same photo film from your camera, digitize the image, automatically apply a whole series of Photoshop-style enhancement algorithms to make your photos really look great, and have to print them out 1 per second. So it had a lot. It was we created one of the fastest image processing systems in the world at the time. It was an engineer's dream job, and Agfa paid us 4 million francs to do it. We delivered it on time, and it worked perfectly. There was, of course, one big problem, and despite our many warnings, Agfa failed to realise how fast their customers would switch from film cameras to digital cameras, which offered a vastly improved user experience. You could immediately take your photos and see them straight away, and then leave them on the camera until the memory card is full, and then take the memory card out and lose it. So this was a great innovation, and Agfa never sold any of these digital mini labs. Shortly afterwards, they spun off their photographics division, and it went bankrupt a year later. So even if big companies, if you're a startup, you don't have many chances to get it wrong, and even in big companies, if they don't have, they had a great product, they had a fantastic team working on it, but they didn't fit their target market, and they didn't achieve product market fit. Some other things that I think to watch out for when in a startup and innovative environment. Startups are everywhere at the moment. They're the new hotness. There's lots of there's lots of assistance available in various forms, especially in Switzerland. You can get financial assistance, coaching. There's all sorts of resources available for office space and other things like that, available from cantonal, federal, or private investors and so on. It's fun to live in startup world, and it's easy to forget about finding customers that will actually pay you. You can go to all kinds of seminars and things all the time, but these are great. All these courses and blogs and communities that will help you to launch a startup, but they're bringing you to the start line, and then reality hits in. Anyway, in summary, innovation in a startup critically depends on coming up with fantastic products and services that people not only want to use but also want to pay for, and this needs to be your principal focus. Bigger companies can sometimes afford to create products that aren't a good fit for their market. Startups have no such luxury. Even bigger companies that make too many mistakes will eventually suffer the same fate. If you look at Microsoft, Nokia, Dell, and HP, they're having big changes right now. Anyway, that's it.
Thank you, Andrew, for reminding us some basics that to be successful, you do need to meet the needs of your customers and to be successful as a startup. Also, there is one idea we steal from you, is to use my iPad next time as a cheat sheet when I have my next speech, because this is the old-fashioned way.